Hey team, welcome to the Charge Forward podcast. I'm your host, Jim Cripps, coming to you from Hit Lab Studios. Joining me today in the studio is Troy Sandifer and John Hughes. Troy, you guys have been doing some amazing work over at Hustle Recovery. How many people have you guys already helped?
Just over 4,000.
And I know you guys are in recovery, but what does that look like?
What we do is we help people who are struggling with addiction. We meet people where they are in their addiction. When they call us for help, we help to navigate them to different treatment centers or whatever their need may be. We provide them with resources, get them into a treatment center, get them into recovery housing afterwards, and then we can help with just meeting social determinants such as housing, employment, things like that.
How did you get started in helping people get into recovery programs and beyond?
Be honest, man, I don't believe anything was an accident, but you could say by complete accident. May the 1st of 2020, I was in early recovery myself. I got a call from a friend of mine's mother that morning to tell me that my friend Josh Barley had died of a fentanyl overdose that morning. I remember when she called just being really upset, crying uncontrollably, and just feeling like I needed to do something. Josh, he wasn't the first person I ever knew that died of an overdose, but something about his just kind of hit different. Josh left behind a 4-month-old son and a 14-year-old daughter and a wife. What I did is I put a post on Facebook that basically said, look, man, if you're struggling with this, you don't have to die. There are people out here who will help you. And if you don't know where to find help, here's my number. Not really knowing what I was going to do to help. I feel like this is kind of where God showed up in my story because that post took off. It was shared hundreds of times over the next few months. About the 20th day I had that post up, my phone started to ring. The first day I got 6 calls, all the same, people I'd never met in my life, who said, hey man, a friend of mine shared this post on Facebook, says you can get people into rehab. And I remember looking back at my phone and scrolling and saying, oh my God, where did I say that? Because I had no clue how to get anybody into rehab. I was thinking more along the lines of, we could go to a 12-step meeting or maybe go to church or have coffee and talk about it. I mean, I really had no idea what I was going to do to help. I just felt driven to help. I remember going to bed that night really disappointed, like, man, you don't put it out there, you're going to help these people. Now you don't know what to do. I remember praying about it. When I got up that next morning, I said, man, I'm going to teach myself how to get people into treatment. At the time we were quarantined, this was early pandemic, so we couldn't go to work, so it gave me plenty of time.
Sure.
I remember sitting at my kitchen table with my iPhone and a notebook and just Googling treatment facilities in a 200-mile radius of Nashville. I would call these facilities as they popped up on Google. They would answer, and I would say, hey, my name is Troy. I'm a recovering addict, and I'm tired of watching these people die. Could you please tell me how to get people in your treatment center? So I just started taking notes. Was it a male or female facility? What insurances do they take? Did they have grant funding? What was the procedure? What was the criteria people needed to meet? Before I knew it, I'd filled up three subject notebooks. Fast forward just over 4 years to today, we now work with over 50 different treatment facilities and over 100 different sober living houses.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so that first time, that first person, how did you get them into treatment? Not knowing the process or any of those things. Obviously, working the phones, but how did that go?
Well, it was lots and lots of phone calls for sure, and then I actually got a hold of somebody at a local place here, Buffalo Valley, who said that they would work with me to help get that person in. They didn't have insurance, so pretty immediately I had to learn how the grant system worked here in Tennessee. Those first few, we had to get real creative on getting them there, and then real quickly what we realized was there was more to it than just getting people admitted into treatment. I remember the first guy calling me back and saying, hey man, I got a bed, but I don't have a way to get there. And I remember I told him at the time I was selling windows for Window World. And I said, hey, man, I'm not working today because we're off. I'll just come and get you and take you. I think last year we logged just over 500,000 miles taking people to treatment centers. So,
Oh, wow. That's a big deal. That's a big job. Through that process, through going from just a Facebook post to now my phone's ringing to now I'm trying to figure out how this whole system works. I guess, when did you kind of understand that this is going to be something I'm going to have to leave my job and do this, or I'm called to do this?
well, it was a couple. I worked full time for a couple of years as we started out. The evolution of it was I happened to meet a guy, a very good friend of mine today, Aaron Ham, who he just said, hey, man, I'd like to buy you some houses. And I remember the day he told me that, I was thinking, like, who the heck is out here buying people houses? I've never heard anything like that in my life. But that's what he did. So when me and John first got started, we opened our first sober living home for men just down the road from here, actually, off of Bell Road. John ran that for me for, I guess, 14 months. And I'll be honest, we didn't see a lot of people get a whole lot of help. I think maybe 3 people stayed clean and sober in that first 14 months. And I remember me and him having lunch and just talking about, like, man, are we really helping anybody here, you know? And I remember saying, man, we need to figure out a way to do this differently. And John said, man, why don't we go back to our roots? What is hustle recovery at its roots? And what we are is we knock down barriers to recovery, whatever that barrier may be. You don't know who to call, you call us, we make the calls for you. You don't have a ride, you call me, I'll come and get you. You don't have shoes on your feet, whatever the barrier is, we'll make sure it gets taken care of. So we sat down that day and we looked at it and said, man, what do people need in early recovery? What do they need once they leave a treatment facility? Well, for one, they need a place to lay their head at night, and we were already doing that. But there was so much more to it. I think the other thing we came up with was that people needed a job. Well, what does that consist of? Well, they need a ride back and forth. They need to know how to ask for a job. So what we did is we started a staffing company called Sober and Serene Enterprises. And we have some wonderful corporate partners, A.L. Smith, Gates Precast, Rogers Manufacturing, Crown Bakery, and a couple other ones who have agreed to hire people for us that are in early recovery. We cater just to people in early recovery. We take them back and forth to work. We help them get bank accounts set up through our partners at Redstone Federal Credit Union. We help them get their IDs back. We basically hold their hand for 6 months as they walk through the recovery process, because what we were finding was we were pretty good at getting people into treatment, but what were these people doing when they left treatment? In the beginning, we were seeing a lot of people that would be repeat, they were coming back within months sometimes, or they were calling me for jail, or they had relapsed, or whatever the situation may be. So what we figured out is the only true determinant that someone stays clean and sober is their length of engagement in recovery. So we look for ways to address these social determinants, and provide people with the things that they needed in order to be successful in integrating back into society.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sounds like you went from the early stages of just we help people get into a treatment center to really now having a process for how people truly recover.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I'm sure that wasn't easy. I'm sure that was a lot of trial and error and just banging your head against the wall. And
we definitely learned by fire.
Well, how did you and John get connected?
Well, we knew a lot of the same people in addiction. A little background on me: I'm a convicted drug dealer. I got in trouble one time in my whole life, and it consisted of 6 felonies. At the time that I started hustle recovery by accident or divine intervention or whatever it was, I was actually on trial at the time for my drug activities in Rutherford County. John, when I first met him face to face, He was
I
actually
was detoxing off of heroin. Yep.
yeah, he was
Wow.
he was in my living room floor detoxing
Yeah.
from heroin. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know that he got clean that day. I think he ended up going back to jail.
Went back to jail and then took the harder route.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, as we do sometimes.
yeah.
When he got out of out of jail though, we had a hard time finding a treatment center for him because John, like me, didn't have any insurance,
Right.
and there wasn't a whole lot of block funding or grant funding available at the time. So we ended up getting him into a program called Recovery on Wildview. And back then it was a program where you could stay for 90 days and there was no charge. The owner just asked that you wrote the first 164 pages of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So when
That
he
was
got
a charge. That's a good charge.
That's good.
I wrote all until my hand fell off for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. And he's actually the guy that owned that program is who kind of put us in business with sober living. John, he kept calling every day. And, I think at the time he probably, just like me in early recovery, didn't have a whole lot of people who
Cared about you.
yeah, that cared about you or that were doing the things that we were doing.
Yeah,
So
Troy took me to work every day for a long time until I got my license and a car and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I think it started me and him just, I just would call, and I had a lot of friends that not really looked up to me, but were like, if John can get sober, I can get sober or clean, whatever you want to call it. And they would call my phone or they would hit me up on Facebook and want help, and I just started flooding Troy's, hey man, I got this guy, this girl, this guy. And it kind of developed a relationship for me and him. And plus he was taking me to work too. So like, it was cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of accountability because you're on this ride to and from work every day, and I almost think, again, things don't happen by accident. It's all for a reason. It probably, in order for y'all to build a successful program that helps get people, through recovery, not to relapse, you may have, it may be due to the fact that you had to go through those hard knocks and, take the hard route.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of different programs. Troy was the lucky one that went to one, but I've been to treatment probably 6-7 times,
it didn't hurt that I was looking at 24 years
that
in the
helped,
penitentiary.
Right.
So quite a bit of motivation.
So, I mean, I know, I don't know what works and what doesn't work, but I've been to a lot of these places to see what is working and what's not, What we have now is it doesn't, so a big problem I get from all these other treatment centers that call and stuff, they'll say, hey man, I got 3 days left, I got 30 days clean now, but like, what do I do now? So our program's kind of set up to where after 6 months, you have a full-time job to come out to that you're hired on with benefits. You have money in your savings account. You have, while you're with us, we try to get your license back and stuff. We try to get you set up to where when you leave us, you have a chance to actually get back into society and not, oh man, I just finished a 6-month program. What do I do now? So it's just really working for the guys who stick it out.
Yeah, because in my head, without that, and I could be wrong on this, but it's like, okay, you got out and you're kind of sitting on the sidewalk outside the treatment center.
Exactly.
Like, what's next?
Exactly.
Yeah. You no longer have your crutch.
Yeah.
Now you've got to deal with life on life's terms, and you don't have the crutch that you used to have, which was getting high.
Yeah.
And 30 days just isn't enough. It's not enough time to repair the relationships that you've broken. Mom and dad might be proud that you went, but you took the mower last time you were here, bud. You can't come back here yet. So it takes a little bit more time to rekindle those relationships and to kind of prove yourself to people that, hey, this isn't just a one-off thing. Like, this is a lifestyle that I'm living now. So
yeah. And so how does that process work for you guys? Obviously, I know you help people get into a treatment program. Mm-hmm. I think the first time we talked, one of the things I didn't understand is, a lot of times there's not a treatment program to get into because they're full.
Right.
And so, I think you guys do some stuff on the front end to like.
Well, we do. We recently got licensed to open a treatment center ourselves. We actually opened up here in about a week. We'll be taking our first patients. We finally got in network with some insurance companies. We'll be doing 10 care. But the program that we're most proud of is one that we piloted a year ago in Rutherford County called respite care for people with SUD.
And if you will, to somebody that doesn't understand, doesn't know, what does that mean?
So
Substance use disorder is what SU.
yeah, substance use disorder.
Yeah.
So what happened is we were navigating all these people into treatment centers. What we found is it was hard for people to get same-day admission. What we figured out through navigating 4,000 people to treatment was when these people call, especially opiate addicts, when they call me, I've got about a 4 to 6 hour window to make something happen. If not, they usually return to use because they're sick. They don't feel good. They want to feel better. Once they return to use, they're at a higher risk for overdose, and then it might be 6 to 8 months down the road before I'm able to catch up with them again. And usually when I catch them again, they're calling me from a jail cell. Now they've really got some consequences. Not only that, we had 5 people die over about a 2-year period that were waiting on treatment beds. One guy we'd actually talked to that morning said, hey, we're on the way to get you to take you to treatment. And he overdosed in the time it took us to get to the hotel room to get him. Mm. That day I told my staff, if someone is using fentanyl and they are motivated to get help, just bring them to my house and put them on the couch. And we did that for, about a year.
Yeah.
A year ago in April, though, my 16-year-old daughter moved back in with me, who I'd been estranged from because of my addiction for about 4 years. So I can no longer do that anymore. And I happened to be talking to a friend of mine, Dr. Sam McMaster, about what I'd been doing. And he said, well, man, what you're doing is called respite care. I didn't even know there was a name for it. I just thought, hey, these people need some help. I'm just going to make sure you don't die today until I can get you there. And I was like, well, that's interesting. It's actually called something. And he said, yeah, man, I helped pilot a program in New Hampshire. So I started reading on the program, and I'm like, wow, this is what we do. At the time, Rutherford County's RIDE board, which has some amazing people on it, Mr. Craig Harris is a commissioner over there in Rutherford County, and he's the chairman of that board. He put together an awesome group of people to be able to give out this money that has came in from the pharmaceutical settlements. So we were the first person that they ever funded. Now, it wasn't easy to get funded, of course, because we had to go back, I think, 3 months in a row. And what we did is we asked them to give us $100,000 to pilot the program with. It's the only money we've ever gotten from anybody. Everything else we've done has been grassroots and out of our own pockets. But they took a chance on me. I remember the day they voted yes. Like I said, we'd already been there 3 months in a row, and I remember Mr. Craig Harris saying, Troy, you told me you're a convicted drug dealer. Why should I trust you? And my answer to that was, sir, you shouldn't, but you should give me a chance to prove myself to you. And he did. Now, he made me report back every single month on every single dime we spent and how many people we helped. But what it did, we were able to open up 10 beds here in Middle Tennessee specifically for this reason. Now, I can't take all the credit for it. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good work over there. But in 1 year, we were able to see a 16% drop in the overdose death rate for Rutherford County. Through doing that work, we met some people at MTSU. We invited them out to one of our properties because I collect a lot of data. I'm a data fanatic, but I don't know what to do with it when I collect it, right? So MTSU came out, Miss Cindy Chafin, and I kind of told her our story and told her about my passion, and I showed her all this data, and I said, hey, man, could you help me tell a story with this? And she said, I'll tell you what, I can do you one better. We'll help you write a grant to the State Opioid Abatement Council, and we'll help you manage the grant. And in March of this year, we received we haven't received it yet, but we were awarded just over $8 million to take this program across the state. So a year from today, we should have 6 locations opened up, 2 in each Grand Division across the state. So
that's amazing. And when you say opened up, That's beds. That's
Beds,
a
yep.
recovery center. What is that?
So what that is going to be is just for respite housing. That is for people who are looking for treatment but cannot get into a treatment center today. So we bring these people in. It puts them in a safe home-like environment. We're able to provide some services there. We've got MOUs with some places to provide MAT. We can start to work to knock down some of those barriers that are keeping them from going into treatment. But you wouldn't believe how many there are. It might be something as simple as I'm not going unless I find somewhere to keep my dog before I go. So we'll help with whatever it is that needs to be helped with. Before this respite care thing came about, we would tell you, hey, we get you a bed, but we can't get you there until Tuesday. And like I said, a lot of people didn't make it to those
Tuesday,
beds.
They
With
got
what
minutes
we've
and hours, not days.
Exactly.
with what we've been able to do in the last year, 94% of the people who came into our respite care made it to a treatment center. 84% of those people completed the initial treatment center we got them into. And when we followed up at 6 months, 48% of those people stayed clean and sober. So the preliminary numbers on it have been outstanding.
And so if we look nationwide, what do those numbers look like compared to your numbers?
From what I've been told, it's somewhere around 10% of people that are leaving treatment centers are actually staying clean and
After
sober.
a 28-day program.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
and largely it's because that program is too short.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding it right. And so let's just say, all things work great. You get me into a respite housing situation. I get into a program. I come out of the program. What does that look like? The transition from leaving the program to coming in, to your program.
So usually as you're getting ready to leave that treatment center, they're going to set you up with a discharge planner or a caseworker. There's somebody there at the treatment center who is helping you figure out the next steps. At that time, you will contact me or my staff, and then we will help you figure out what's next. We've been pretty good at placing people where they need to be because not every program works for everybody. Like ours isn't right for everybody, but people in certain situations ours is great for. Like if you don't have a job or family support to go back to, if you don't have a vehicle, then you can come to us for 6 months. We will pick you up from the treatment center the day that you get out. You usually stay with us for about 2 weeks before we'll let you go to work. In those 2 weeks, we do what we call job readiness training. Basically, we'll do like 5 different classes, I think it is. It's the do's and don'ts of interviewing, workplace etiquette, workplace safety, resume writing, and there's one other one in it. It escapes me, but you'll do that in the first few weeks. We'll start getting your identification stuff together, start getting your bank account set up, getting what else is there? Any other kind of services you might need, whether it be
mental
medical,
health
mental health
appointments,
appointments, whatever it is.
That 2 weeks gap is just to get people really acclimated to the house. Like, this is who my roommate is. This is what time we're doing meetings. This is kind of how the house is working. It's never good to throw somebody in fresh out of recovery. Like, oh, you're going to work tomorrow. It never. We tried that and it didn't work out.
It didn't work out
so
too good, so.
They ended up leaving, or so we give them some time just to sit back and get all their ducks in a row, and that sets them up to be successful a little more.
That's good. And in that 2 weeks, is it round the clock, or their supervision or your supervision?
Yeah, there's supervision. Yeah,
There's round the clock supervision at all of our houses.
Yeah, okay.
So, once they start work in that second week, they'll get a job assignment at one of the different companies we work with. They are working usually 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah. I don't let them work any more than 50 because they got to have time for their recovery.
Mm-hmm.
There's some weekends that some of my partners will let them work. If they're all caught up on their chore or doing their step work looks good, then we'll let them work an extra 8 hours or something. But
so one of the things that we do. Me and John come from a 12-step background, so we're firm believers in the 12 steps of recovery, AA, NA, all those.
all the A's.
Yeah, all the A's. So one of the reasons that we have been successful is we've had an outpouring of support from the recovery community here locally. So people come into the homes and actually sponsor these guys and girls to help take them through the 12 steps of recovery. So every day while they're there, they go to work, and then they get an hour of programming every day. We do a mix of a few different curriculums, and then they do an hour of 12-step work every day.
Yeah.
We go to several meetings, outside meetings. That way they can kind of build a network of people who are in recovery. We try to go to all the recovery fests and different
Events all
events
around
that they
town, yeah.
have. So, and then the other thing that we do is we try to do as much volunteer work with these guys as we can to get them giving back something in the community. What we found is that, the opposite of addiction is connection. So these guys and girls have to be able to make connections with other people. So they do that in the houses, in the events that we go to, and also in the workplace. So
Yeah. And now, do you see, I guess when somebody comes out of a program, comes into your program, and they're working through, I mean, do you usually try to place them in the same general vicinity where they live, or if they're from Middle Tennessee, we try to stay in Middle Tennessee, or is that a hindrance?
They live with us.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have locations in Dixon, Nashville,
Yeah.
and Cheatham County. So it'll be one of those three locations. If you're from Antioch, I'm probably not going to put you in my Antioch house.
No.
You're probably coming out to Cheatham County.
Right.
If you're from Cheatham County, you might go to Dixon. So we found that there's something to changing your playground a little bit,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That environment's too easy to go back to.
it is.
It is.
Yeah, it can be very tempting,
Yeah.
especially once you get a little bit of money in the bank.
Yeah.
And so what is it? I mean, so they work through your program over the course of 6 months. That's 6 months after they went through the treatment, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So now we've got 7 months, and kind of in our rearview mirror, counting the days. And what does the average one come out with? Obviously, they've got a job. Has that switched to more of a permanent type of employment situation, or
Yeah,
Yes.
all of our contracts offered, most of my guys are making over $20 an hour when they graduate with full benefits. They come out with like $3,000 to $5,000 in their savings account.
In a head full.
In
of
a head full of
recovery.
recovery, man. They got some sponsorships. They got us. They got the community. They got the friends, the brothers that they graduated with. And we have some step down houses for them, that they go into. Now we don't supply transportation there and stuff, but I mean, at that time you're coming out and you have enough money to go put money down in a car. You have money to get your license back. You have money to move around. Pay for some Ubers until you get your other checks coming in. Like you have some resources to move around with.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, the step down houses are more what I call traditional sober living. So we ask that you hit 5 12-step meetings a week or church, pay your rent on Friday. We randomly drug test still. You still have the accountability, just not 24-hour day supervision like you had before. So
Yeah, and you're being weaned off to do it on
Exactly.
your own.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what our program is about. We're not trying to lock you in. We want you to experience just enough of life to where like you can kind of get out into the workplace and have some of those triggers come, and then you can come home and talk about them, and then you can go through those things that's going to happen, but I like when guys go through some stuff in our program because at least they have us around them to go through some stuff, and they're not out alone on their own, knowing that they can go get high today. Like they have some accountability. So we kind of like for them to get out and get a little taste of the real world.
Yeah, because they're going to be in it soon enough.
Exactly right. So
Yeah, no, that's great. Troy, backing up just a little bit, one of the most fascinating things that we talked about before is, you said you were in court looking at one heck of a sentence
Yes, sir.
for getting in trouble, and I know it was not the motivation why you started this thing, but boy, did it play into your favor when
it definitely did. Like I said, I was on trial when I started this. I started it on May the 1st of 2020. In October is when I was due to go to trial. I had a very good attorney, a good friend of mine to this day. And he said, look, man, like, you're going to prison for a little while. Like, you need to just get your mind right. It's gonna happen. I'm a good attorney, but there's not much I can do about this. And he was right. I mean, I'd been dealing to feed my own habit, and I deserved every day they would have gave me. By the time I went to trial, I'd gotten 33 people into treatment. When I got to my trial readiness hearing that day, I remember my attorney standing over at the DA's desk and waving at me to come here. And I remember thinking, oh, Lord, I'm going to jail today. Every time I'd gotten someone into treatment, I'd done a post on Facebook that would say, you know, John, congratulations on the decision you made for a better life, and thank you to whatever treatment center had helped me get them in. And if you or somebody you know is struggling with this, give me a call. I can help. And if nobody told you today, I love you and I believe in you, and God's going to see you through this. I ended every post that way. And I remember the DA had all of these posts printed out on a separate piece of paper and spread across the desk.
So this was the DA, not your lawyer. Mm-hmm. This was the DA doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The DA had caught wind of what I was doing, so she made me an offer that day. She said, Troy, I think you'll do more good out here than you will in there. And they made me an offer of 16 years on community corrections, which I'm serving out today. It's actually been a very humbling experience, but it's also been a great experience. It's kept me accountable. I recently graduated from community corrections to state probation. A good friend of mine, Miss April, that runs community corrections in our region, actually called me personally to congratulate me on my graduation. And now we work really closely with their program. We take the guys that are on community corrections into our program now. And it's worked out great so far. And then recently, my new state probation officer reached out. He's a pastor, and he's going to come out and do pastoral support in our houses. So it's been a really, really good experience. It's, 6 years ago, I never thought that I would be having lunch and meetings with like judges and attorneys and state representatives and the people I get to sit at a table with today. It's really amazing, the life that I get to live.
Yeah, man. They let us walk into jails and get people out of jail
And walk out.
Walk
with
out
them.
with
Well, it's not for nothing. It's because they see what you do with them.
Right.
You know,
So,
whether you want to say it's selfish or selfless, it's really the same thing.
right.
You know, and that's just. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so the kind of the premise of our podcast is those that choose to charge forward when they hit those walls, when they hit those trying times, when other people would just lay down. And I think you guys are just an amazing example of that, because it's the whole reason you're sitting here. It's the whole reason that you're doing what you're doing and helping the people that you're helping. And you're trying to teach them to charge forward.
Right.
Yeah, man. It's a different life, man. Definitely the what we used to live. I won't never do nothing different. The rest of my, I don't even feel like this is a job. I feel like this is a dream come true. Just sit back and just help people that I was in the same spot with that I was in. Give them hope. Like you can charge forward and you can get out of this stuff, man.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful.
Well, I always say, I tell the guys in our house, I believe God puts us through what we go through to give us a testimony. And our only job is to tell our story. And then God will use that story to touch somebody else's life, because you never know what it is you may say to someone about your story that's going to resonate with them and give them the hope that they can do something different,
Yeah, I'm a firm believer the worst thing that can possibly happen to a person is them lose hope.
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely right.
We haven't talked about this. When they're in your treatment program, when you're helping them through that, I mean, do you teach them anything on the health side of things? Like how are you teaching them to take care of their body so that they're less likely to get sick, more likely to keep that job, to stay engaged and keep pushing forward?
Yeah, part of the program that we do includes health and wellness. like this month, I know Meharry Medical Center is coming out doing a big training on reproductive health. We do a lot of stuff around STDs, Hep C, things like that. Not only that, but you know, getting in some exercise and
Yeah, a lot of people like to lift weights at our places.
yeah,
You know?
we've got little small gyms at each place. I mean, nothing fancy, but we've got some weights they can throw around and some treadmills they can run on, and
Yeah, got a couple swimming pools.
yeah,
So we try to keep the swimming pools up. They go out and swim after work and stuff. So we try to keep them, pretty active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just makes you feel human
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
You know.
Yep.
And do people donate that equipment? I guess how do you get that equipment? How could somebody donate a piece of equipment that's
yeah, we'll take all we can get.
Yeah,
We're a poor nonprofit.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't let the grant we got coming fool you. It's a line item.
Yeah.
All that money's spent. We still need all the help we can get. But yeah, actually, Cheatham Middle School actually donated a bunch of stuff to us. We went down. Our guys went and helped them do some painting. Was it last year or the year before?
I think it was last year.
Yeah, and they had some treadmills and different things that they donated to us, and then we've had some individuals who came forward to bring us some different stuff. So
Yeah, we need some dumbbells, y'all.
hey, everybody, you heard it here. Hustle Recovery. They could use some dumbbells out there.
they definitely could. They definitely could.
I love it. Well, I think that's a huge piece of it is teaching people how to take care of their body, how to make sure that they're ready for that next day. Because if you don't feel good, you're much more likely, to do something that's even worse.
Mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body, and spirit. That's right.
That's right. Somebody out there right now is listening to this podcast, and maybe they need to be in a treatment center. Maybe they haven't come to the reality yet that the bottom is near. What do you say specifically to them? Somebody that's in that type of situation.
That it's not hopeless. Recovery is possible. If it worked for somebody like me, believe me, it'll work for you. Help is available.
Yeah.
No matter what your situation is, whether you have insurance, you don't have insurance, it doesn't really matter. We can find a way to help you. All you've got to do is reach out to us.
Yeah, I helped a guy yesterday in New York. Or that's the cool thing about this. Everybody that I work with pretty much is in recovery, and they work for places that have places all over United States. So when I was getting sober, it was like that for me. I want help, but what do I do?
Yeah.
I wish a place like Hustle was around during that time. Everybody on our side of the fence is ex-addicts, whatever, convicts, sex workers, whatever. We have a lot of people on our team that are, man, if you need any kind of direction or some help like that, man, there's hope, and one of us are going to answer the phone and be able to talk to you and say, man, we're being exactly where you're at right now, and this is what we need to do to get this going. So that's the cool thing about us is we kind of we're like the middleman to all this. So if you're too sick, to make the phone calls, we'll make them for you. I wish there was more places like us around, because my phone does not stop ringing.
Yeah.
Ever. Neither does Troy's, Kim's, none of ours do. So, we need some more.
Well, I think one of the big problems that I don't think is well understood is whether we're talking about coming out of a treatment program or whether we're talking about coming out of incarceration. That transition back into society is not good. I mean, that's as nice as I can possibly say it. It's either abrupt and there's no guidance, or it's right into a bad situation.
I think everybody should do what they call a reentry simulation. They have these randomly throughout the state. We've been to a couple of them. They kind of walk you through a scenario. It's almost like a game you're playing. That kind of shows you how difficult it is when you don't have identification, you don't have transportation, you don't have a stable place to live, you don't know what your next meal is coming from. To be able to go and do the right things and get all of these social determinants that you need to get took care of. It's not easy. And without people to walk you through that and help you through that, for some people it's impossible. It's a lot easier just to go back to the streets.
Right.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, we definitely need more places that and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good places out there, but the demand is so high
Yeah.
that there's just not enough to go around to help everybody.
There's only so many spots. There's only so many beds.
So many. Yep. So.
Wow. Wow. Well, you guys are doing amazing work, and I think one of the things that maybe that you don't tout enough about yourselves is, that's 4,000 people you've got into treatment and got through the process. But how many lives do those people touch? Right. It's the anywhere from 3 to 20 people that their life affects. If they're back in with their family, or they're able to get back with their family versus on their own because of this addiction.
Yeah, that's true.
No, definitely. I go to these detoxes and speak, and I always that's what I say to them. Like, it takes people like me and Troy, people that's been through it, to really, if I can just get everybody that I'm speaking to, if they just one person in here just gets the message and goes back and touches 10 more people, and then they touch, and that's the only way we're going to put a dent in this stuff is to talk about it and drop the stigma about it and make it almost a dinner table conversation. It needs to be forefront.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think it's one of those things. Even with your kids, you got to talk about it, and it's not just don't do drugs. It's it's way more in depth than that.
100%.
I feel the same way about money. It's up to us as parents in order to teach the things that the world will teach them the wrong thing.
Right.
And it may be an uncomfortable conversation. It may not be something we're looking forward to, but we either teach them the right way or somebody else is going to teach them the wrong way.
It's different now. Troy always says it like, you can't go out and do cocaine on the weekends. It's probably laced with fentanyl and you're probably going to die. So there's not much room to try anything anymore, man. It's just it's a totally different world we live in from when I was a kid or you're a little older than I am, so
it's life or death now.
Yeah.
And this epidemic that we're facing is a true epidemic. It's taking more lives than everything else combined, and it's happening right here. Nashville, Tennessee is the number 2 metro in the United States for overdose deaths, only behind Baltimore, Maryland. More people die per capita in Davidson County from overdose than anywhere else in the country. That's scary.
That is scary. That's scary to think about. That's scary to. I mean, it's right here in our back door, and it's people that we know.
Yeah.
And it's ugly, but we're not going to fix it if we don't tell the truth.
That's right.
Plain and simple. And so somebody right now could be struggling with addiction. Sometimes sometimes you don't know.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is, we're in the Bible Belt, and a lot of people look at addiction as a moral dilemma, and it's not. It's a brain disorder. This is a health problem, and the sooner we start treating it as such,
right,
the quicker we're going to get to some solutions.
Yeah,
we can't arrest our way out of this problem.
Right, because it doesn't fix it.
It does not.
Yeah.
No. At times it just makes it worse.
Somebody out there is maybe closer to in your seat in that, they're through recovery and they're trying to figure out what they're meant to do. They haven't found their calling yet. How does somebody take charge and go, help other people?
For me, man, it was just doing the next right thing. If you see that guy, have a conversation with somebody. That's the main thing. Set all your judgments aside. Realize that drug addicts aren't bad people. They're people in bad situations that might have made some bad decisions. But, be open and willing to let God use you.
Yeah, and what I see sometimes too is, it's sometimes not even a bad decision, in my opinion. That could be considered controversial, but let's just say you get hurt, and while you were recovering, you got addicted to that painkiller because they put you on oxy, or whatever version, and then it just spiraled.
Well, that's where a lot of us started.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I started. I hurt my back. I ended up getting into pain management. I was way overprescribed pain pills, which led into other addictions. I was in pain management for 6 years. The government cracked down on the overprescribing. What that did, it didn't get rid of the people who were using opiates for pain. It just pushed them into the illicit market. They started using heroin, is what it was back then. Real quickly, the cartels and distributors realized it was a lot cheaper and more profitable to provide fentanyl instead of heroin, and then that's what it's turned into. And now what our problem is the these opiates, they're evolving quicker than we can keep up with them.
Yeah.
At one point fentanyl was our biggest problem, and now there's probably 4 or 5 other drugs that are worse problem than that.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Well, guys, I appreciate the amazing work you guys are doing out here. It's making a difference. And if we just use 10 as the multiplier, we're talking about 40,000 people that you guys have affected their lives, their family members, in some shape, form, or fashion. Not to mention, the businesses that you're getting employees into and helping them find people to work for them and people that are going to be thankful for the work and do good work. So. Again, thank you for what you're doing here in Middle Tennessee. It's fantastic to see.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. How does somebody get a hold of you? How does somebody reach out? They got a family member, or they're the one that needs help, or they want to donate something?
So you can find us online at www.hustlerecovery.org is our website. We're also on Facebook at Hustle Recovery INC. We're also on Instagram, and then you can call us at either
615-617-7530. That's me. That's John's number. Yep.
Okay.
And then you got Kimberly Ryan's number, which is 629-899-1001. Yep.
Okay. Or you can reach me at 615-568-5699.
All right. And then last thing is if you could ask the audience for something or give them one tidbit of wisdom, what would that be?
You can never dream big enough for what God has in store for you. I'm not telling you not to plan, but don't be so married to your plan that you can't let God work in it. Because when I started this, I never dreamed it would be what it is today. I was just trying to get a few people into treatment before I went to prison. Never did I think we would touch so many lives. So.
That's it. That's amazing. Well, Troy, John, thanks for your sharing. Listeners of the Charge Forward podcast, I want to say special thanks to Troy and John from Hustle Recovery for coming out and sharing their story and just the amazing work that they're doing here in Middle Tennessee. Also, huge shout out to our sponsors, Sense Custom Development and Charge Forward Solutions. Until next time, we'll see you later. Team, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Charge Forward podcast. Look forward to other amazing guests, and until next time, I'm your host, Jim Cripps. Special thanks, as always, to Nick Hyder and the creative team at Hit Lab Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. Special thanks to our sponsors, Sense Custom Development and Charge Forward Solutions. Please be sure to like and subscribe.